Hello, my name is Emmanuel Gonzalez, and I will talk to you about my user story in detail. I first documented my user story using Mango. The description of it is, as a PI, I would like to be able to manage VIP project groups and its members. The acceptance criteria for it was, the PI must be able to assign a user to a specific project group. He must be able to remove the user from the project group. The changes must be reflected in the database. The student approval status should display on the tables, and the group tables should be organized by group names. I completed a few tasks in order to finish this user story, which included learning the mean stack, backend development, front-end development, working on UML diagrams, starting to code, and finally connecting to the database, testing and debugging, and collaborating within the group. Next, we move on to documentation. Here we see that in my use case, the PI should be able to add group members and, on the same token, remove that member from the group if he chose to. Now we move on to the sequence diagram. Here we can see that when the PI arrives at the group page, he will be able to display all the users by querying the database for the groups and its members. The database will then return the users and they will be displayed in the front end almost instantaneously. If the PI wanted to, he could move a user to a new group. It will do this by querying the database and updating the user in the database. The database will then return the updated information, and the updated information will be refreshed on the page. I will now show you my class diagram. As it shows here, I use the user model as my schema for the backend. I use the express router for all the backend routes. I use a service to hand off data to the backend and receive data from the backend. I use the user controller as a handoff from the backend to the front end and the front end to the backend. I then use UI router as the function that routes to my front-end group page, which uses ngRepeat, ngModel, and ngShow to manipulate all the data and to show and hide all the buttons I use in my front-end page. Now I'll show you my code. I will show you my code starting from the front-end to the back-end. Here is my HTML page for the groups. I use expressive functions from the Angular framework to populate the members of the groups. Here you can see how I implemented the reassign button, which used the drop-down to reassign the students to the projects. In my controller, I use a function called update project to send all this information to a service. The service is called change project, and what it does is it grabs the information such as the project from the user I want to change it, and it sends it to the backend. In the backend, I handle this as a put function. This updates the database using a put request, which updates the fields I tell it to. As far as improvements to my user story, I can think of at least two. When a student is not assigned to a group, he or she can be assigned to one. However, there is no functionality to remove the user permanently from the database. If we go down here, we can see that they can be put into Project X or Project 2, but we cannot delete them permanently. Secondly, further integration will need to be done so that when the user is removed from a project and reassigned to another one, the PI approval fields and staff approval fields are reset as the project has changed for that student. Thank you for listening. This has been the implementation of my user story, and it was a pleasure working on it.